Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros renewed the call for a dialogue and assured that with the victory of the revolutionary forces last Sunday, his office will be able to foster the Federal Council of the government with the participation of all political forces of the South American nation. This Tuesday in Bolivia, social organizations marched in support of the government of Luis Arce Catacora and against the right-wing's destabilizing efforts. Palestine celebrates a victory. Palestinian prisoner Kayed al-Fasfous on hunger strike after 131 days without food gets his illegal arrest ended. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your host, Gladys Quesada. And we continue our focus in Venezuela since the president of that American country, Nicolás Maduro Moros, renovated the call for a dialogue and assured that with the victory of the revolutionary forces last Sunday, they will be able to foster the Federal Council of the government with the participation of all political forces of the South American nation. The statement was made after knowing the results of the elections that gave the vote of 20 governments plus the mayor's office of Caracas to the party of the current government. The head of state emphasized that by means of negotiations and constitutional respect, it is possible to progress by working together. Maduro recalled that one of the most highlighted aspects by the international observers is precisely the participation of all political forces, both in exercising the right to vote and in the whole organizational process of the elections.
I make the same call for governors and mayors of the Great Patriotic Pole. Let's work with dialogue, with understanding. Let's work with goodwill and spirit. I offer my hand to those elected governors from the opposition to get together and design plans together and support the states that have presented, nominated and elected them. That's the call I make once again, with goodwill and positive spirit.
The elected governor of the state of Zulia, Manuel Rosales, acknowledged the official results of the elections held last Sunday. Rosales thanked the people for their participation in the process. Furthermore, he assured that democracy is the true winner in this event. With this assertion, Rosales ratifies the legitimacy of the highest electoral body, as well as the transparency of the election. The opposition, David Uzcaregui, regrets the late unification of the opposition candidacy in the state of Miranda. During a press briefing, a spokesperson from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs congratulated Venezuela and its people for a stable and orderly elections and expressed his country's commitment to fully respect the Bolivarian nation's sovereignty and freedom.
China has been closely following the situation in Venezuela. We have seen the electoral process was stable and orderly. It is entirely an internal affair of Venezuela for the government and the people to conduct local elections in accordance with its constitution and laws. This should not be subject to senseless accusations and heavy interference from outside forces. China is consistently committed to the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries. We believe the Venezuelan government and people are capable of properly managing their internal affairs. China calls on all parties to respect the democratic system and practices in Venezuela and the independent election of its people, and to play a constructive role in solving the political challenges in Venezuela.
Now we move on to Central America because the electoral strategy in Honduras continues since the independent movement Dignity and Hope, led by former Army Captain Santos Orellana, at the last minute instructed its militants to support the candidate of the Liberty and Refoundation Party, Xiomara Castro, for the general elections to be held on Sunday, November 28th. Through a press release presented by digital platforms, the political group assured that their leader, former military officer Santos Orellana, is a political prisoner as a consequence of his arrest and imprisonment for denouncing the president's brother. In this sense, Orellana instructs the white militancy to vote for the presidential candidate Xiomara Castro. The former military officer expressed his confidence that once she takes control of Honduras government, Castro will release all prisoners of conscience, including his leader. And here are some news from Honduras. A few hours after the electoral silence and less than a week before the presidential elections, it was known that the mayor of Azacualpa, Carlos Orlando Sandres, and the candidate for deputy, Maria Fernanda Sandres, suffered an attack. According to information provided by the mayor himself to local media, while he was at his residence with Maria Fernanda Sandres, who is also his daughter and is competing for a seat in Congress representing the National Party, an explosive device was detonated against the house. The mayor of this town, north of Santa Barbara, confirmed that they were unharmed. Up to now, police authorities have not made any statement. Hours earlier, the UN Commissioner for Honduras, Elise Shackelford, insisted on the need to maintain calm and the peace in the country that has registered so far 31 politically motivated assassinations and more than 65 attacks.
From the United Nations, we have some very clear messages. First, go to vote. Voting is something critical. We hope all that develops in peace, and it is also important to wait. In the evening, when the ballot box closes, it is important that political actors, wait for the results to come out, because that is also important to manage the possible conflicts that may arise. But it is very, very important to keep calm, to be in peace, not only to vote, but also in the hour after to wait quietly for the results, so that the process gets to an end in the best possible way.
And here are some news from Honduras. And investigations continue in Argentina and less than a week before the presidential elections. It was known that the mayor of Azacualpa, Carlos Orlando Sandres, and the candidate for deputy, Maria Fernanda Sandres, suffered an attack. Another 26-year-old member of the Mapuche community to local media, Gonzalo Cabrera, was also injured as a result of the same attack after being shot twice in the stomach. And is competing for a seat in Congress dressed in civilian clothes entered the property of Cuesta del Ternero, where this event took place. The mayor of this town, been identified by the authorities, confirmed that the attack generated revolts. Up to now, police authorities have not made gather all the information needed to locate the whereabouts of the aggressors, and let justice to be done. Insisted on the need to maintain calm and the peace in the country that has registered so far 31 politically motivated assassinations and more than leader of the Chilean Copper Workers Federation, urged the people to vote for the presidential candidate of Apruebo
From the United Nations, we have some very clear messages.
The privatization of the National Copper Corporation.
Voting is something critical.
The trade unionists stated that the presidential candidacy of José Antonio Caz, who won first place in the first round of last Sunday's presidential elections, means a real threat for Chile, meaning it will very likely lose its main source of income.
Because that is also important to manage the possible conflicts that may arise. But it is very, very
the warning
important
responds
to keep calm,
to the repeated
to be in
intention
peace,
to privatize
not only
Codelco,
to vote,
with the
but
argument
also
of
in the hour
achieving the entry
after
of
to
capital
wait
to the
quietly for the
country.
results,
The union
so that
leader
the process
pointed out that
gets
there
to
is
an
a
end
real
in the best
scenario of
possible
losing
way.
the Codelco that they have known for 50 years, and
A
investigations continue in
that is the main
Argentina
support of
into
their
the murder of the young Mapuche man Elias Garay, who was shot in the head by two armed men in the area of the Cuesta. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. This Tuesday in Bolivia, social organizations marched in support of the government of Luis Arce Catacora and against the right-wing's destabilizing efforts. The march will leave from Caracollo, Oruro, towards the city of La Paz in defense of the process of change. The marchers will seize the occasion to demonstrate against the national opposition strike as an act that has already been rejected by the organization since days ago against the Pro-Santa Cruz Civic Committee to enforce the right to work and free movement. In this context, Fernando Camacho, promoted of the November 2019 coup d'etat and current governor of Santa Cruz, announced new mobilizations against the new government and proclaimed himself the leader of a movement to impose federalism in Bolivia. And the former head of state and the social indigenous leader Evo Morales accompanied the rally that kick-started in the march. Morales took to Twitter to write, "The united people and their organizations and social movements from the countryside and the city begin this Tuesday 23rd the march for the homeland to defend our democracy and democratic government headed by brother Luis Arce Catacora. This Tuesday in Bolivia, in the face of the internal conspiracy of the Bolivian government of Luis Arce Catacora and against the right-wing's destabilizing efforts." The march will leave from Caracollo,
Now we move on to other
towards
topics.
the city. Russian authorities rejected on Tuesday the United States actions will seize the occasion to demonstrate against the national opposition strike as an act that has already been rejected by the organization since days ago against the pro-Santa Cruz civic committee to enforce the right to work and free movement on the Kremlin without antagonizing Germany. According to a statement from the U.S. Secretary of State Governor Blinken, the administration announced new mobilizations against the new government believed to be a Russian shell company over pipeline work done by one of its ships, the Merlin. Another vessel, the Blue Ship, was cited for his work on the pipeline, but not sanctioned because it belongs to an entity affiliated with the German government. Accompanying the rally, the Russian ambassador to the U.S., Morales, took to Twitter to write, the United People and their organizations and by way of sanctions from the countryside and violate international law. Begin this Tuesday, 23rd, the March for the Homeland to defend our democracy and democratic government headed by brother Luis Arce Catacora. Russia's foreign in defense of the internal conspiracy of the United States allegations that Moscow is planning an invasion of Ukraine. The Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation said the U.S. is Russian authorities rejected on Tuesday the United States actions of imposing country's territory for the military invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin denied the allegations about a build-up of military forces near its northeast neighbor was a prelude to invasion and accused Washington of destabilizing the region and the international community. In its statements, the SVR also said it had information on advances by the Ukrainian armed forces, as well as Ukraine organizing a concentration of forces in areas bordering Russia and Belarus. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Sochi, Russia. The two leaders discussed issues pertaining to the further development of bilateral cooperation and the situation in the Middle East, taking into Russia's efforts towards the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. The Russian head of state thanked his Palestinian counterpart for accepting the invitation to visit his country. Both leaders agreed there is a tense situation in the region, and apart from the pressure exerted from outside forces, the coronavirus pandemic has also played its role. 46 people, including a dozen minors, were killed after a bus caught fire south of the Bulgarian capital early on Tuesday. The cause has yet to be determined. It was traveling from Turkey to North Macedonia. It then crashed into guardrails. There were no other vehicles involved in the accident, which occurred on a highway about 40 kilometers from Sofia, near the village of Bosnek, and 7 people survived. Among the dead were victims of several nationalities, including a Belgian. Bulgaria's interim Prime Minister Stefan Yanev said a probe into the accident had been launched, dismissing the suggestion that roads conditions were to blame. Interpol held its annual meeting in Istanbul on Tuesday to discuss security threats and also crime trends, as well as to hold a closely watched election for the international police body's new leadership. Police chiefs and other representatives from the organization's 194 member countries are attending the 3-day General Assembly, which is scheduled to vote on Thursday to elect a new president and executive committee members. The vote is subject of added controversy because representatives from China and the United Arab Emirates are bidding for the top post. One of the candidates, Ahmed Nasser al-Raisi, is accused by human rights groups of involvement in torture and arbitrary detentions in the UAE. Although it is Interpol's Secretary General that runs the organization on day-to-day basis, the president is still a figurehead and plays a role in supervising the police body's work and guiding its overall general direction. Now we address other topics. A new lava flow coming from Cumbre Vieja volcano and into the sea of the southwestern Spanish island of La Palma prompted authorities to order the confinement of nearly 3,000 people for fear of noxious gases. The Canary Islands Volcanic Emergency Plan ordered the confinement of residents of the coastal and villages near where the lava cascaded into the sea to avoid them being affected by the possible release of gases that are harmful to health. This is the third time lava flow has reached the Atlantic Ocean since the volcano erupted on September 19th, covering large areas with ash. All flights to and from La Palma's airport were cancelled on Monday because of the ash, the third straight day that their travel has been disrupted. Lava has destroyed schools, churches, health centers, and irrigation infrastructure for the island's banana plantations, as well as hundreds of homes. At least 30 people are dead or missing after flash floods that had been hitting southern India since last Saturday. Rescue teams pulled out a dozen bodies after 3 buses were washed away in Andhra Pradesh state. A media outlet reported that at least 18 other people were still missing. Analysts stated unpredictable and extreme weather across South Asia is driven by climate change, exacerbated by damming, deforestation, and excessive development. Dozens have died since October in India after heavy rains triggered floods and landslides. At least 42 people were killed last month where heavy rains hit Kerala, and authorities in the state halted entry to Sambarilala, one of the Hinduism holy streams, due to heavy rains in the area.
The national president extended
It's been more than 10-12 years since the lake became full, and this is the first time it has become overloaded, and the drains have been blocked. Due to the blocking of drains, water is overflowing.
That's a result that
and it
comes
has
from
rained
the
very
efforts
heavily
of a
too.
24
Last night it also rained continuously from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. and due to the blocked drains, it is overflowing like this.
And investigations continue.
We can go inside the house because water has extinguished in front of it. All the groceries are inside, and we have been outside the house since 10 o'clock last night. We are unable to go inside our home.
Insisted on the need to maintain calm and the peace in the country. And we have more news coming up after this final short break. So stay with us. Welcome back. Israel is placed to a sound victory for Palestinian prisoners on hunger strike. After 131 days without food, Kayed al-Fasfous gets his illegal arrest ended. Ayad al-Harimi also declared an extreme strike, suspended as his release is agreed for March 2022. 31 years old, and Fasfous will leave prison in December. Another Palestinian prisoner, Alaa al-Rah, had suspended his 103-day strike as of last Thursday after hearing of his early release. The United Nations and numerous human rights groups have sharply criticized the so-called administrative detention used by Israel to arrest Palestinian citizens for renewable intervals, based on evidence known only to the accusers. This practice has been declared by a large part of the international community as illegal and inhumane, while Naftali Bennett's government not only continues its application, but also carries out settlements and decolonizing plans in Palestinian lands. In updated figures, it is estimated that more than 450 West Bank citizens are behind bars with the application of this punishment. In total, almost 5,000 Palestinians, 225 of whom are children, are serving time in Israeli prisons. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Mariano Grossi, began talks in Tehran on Tuesday, a week before the resumption of negotiations to salvage the Iran nuclear deal. A day after arriving in the Iranian capital, Director General Grossi opened discussions with the chief at the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, Mohammad Islami. Later on, the head of the energy agency met for the first time with Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, who is in charge of nuclear issues on Iran's new government. The talks came ahead of the scheduled resumption next Monday of negotiations between Tehran and the world powers aimed at saving the 2015 deal, also known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that gave Iran sanctions relief in return for curbs on its nuclear program. The November 29th talks will be held in Vienna, where the International Atomic Energy Agency is based.
And we are continuing at this point our negotiations with a view to finding common ground. There are a number of issues that we are working, and as the President just said, it's very important that we put this in the perspective of the peaceful nuclear program of Iran at a time where climate change demands that we work together, that we add clean nuclear energy to the matrices around the world, and as it was discussed just a few days ago in Glasgow.
Chinese government condemns passing of U.S. warship through the Taiwan Strait. After a destroyer armed with guided missiles went through the waters of the Taiwan Strait in China on Tuesday, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian issued a statement condemning the U.S. action. The spokesperson said that the action was part of an attempt to undermine peace and stability in the region. He also called on the United States to respect the One China policy. He also urged the United States not to cross the line, not to play with fire, and stop causing trouble.
Warships of the United States have repeatedly flaunted their strength and provoked troubles in the Taiwan Strait, recently in the disguise of free navigation. This is not a promise to freedom and openness, but a deliberate interference and destruction of regional peace and stability. This is clear and obvious to the international community.
And Egypt is the new president pro tempore of the chiefs of state and government of the Common Market of Eastern and Central Africa entity known as COMESA. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi replaced Madagascar's head of state, Andry Rajoelina, in the opening of the 21st COMESA summit held in Cairo. The summit is celebrated 3 years after the last one in Lusaka, Zambia, in July 2018. Last time Egypt was the host of a COMESA meeting was in 2001. The country will now lead the regional bloc to achieving all goals in next year's agenda. On Monday, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, assured he will lead the national army after the rising tensions with the Tigray forces. In a communiqué, the Premier affirmed that said measure will allow a swift reaction to any aggression that the Tigray forces could carry out, bearing in mind all the people who have died as a result of the conflict. The situation in Tigray has been denounced by several countries and outside the region, out of fear of destabilization in the Horn of Africa. On the other side of the battlefront, the spokesperson of the Tigray forces, Getachew Reda, claimed that the actions of these troops will not cease, since the object of the fight is to end Ahmed's alleged control over the people. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.